You are listening to the Shockwaves Hard Radio Podcast, heard exclusively on HardRadio.com. And now, here is your host, Bob Nalbandian.
Shockwaves Hard Radio Podcast number 76. What you heard right there was a classic. Man, I haven't heard that song in a while. That is a classic Baby song from their debut album in like 1976, I believe. Bob Ezrin produced album, opening track, Looking for Love. Very underrated band, very underrated album. And of course, we've got original Baby's guitarist Wally Stocker on this podcast. So let's get on to our final interview, our last but not least interview, the great Wally Stocker from the Babies, a great band that I was way into. Like I said, since their debut album, and their first three albums I just absolutely loved. And their latter albums were cool too, just a little bit poppier. That's when they got Jonathan Cain and Ricky Phillips in the band. But Wally been going at it a long time. And as you could hear in the interview, he's been doing a lot of things in between, played with Rod Stewart, Humble Pie, a lot of great stuff. And it's so good to see the Babies back together. I was actually fortunate enough to catch their CD release party they did. I believe it was 2014. I believe, God, 2 years this album's already been out. Yeah, 2014, they did a small CD release party in Burbank, and man, they sounded better than ever. They had the whole band. The new singer, John Bisaha, sounded amazing. They had a second guitar player, Joey Sykes, doing mostly rhythm guitar, and he's a major songwriter as well on this new album. Francesco Saglietti, I believe is his name, on keyboards, and of course the Babettes. They had the full band in force and did a lot of the, they only did a short set there, but did all the, like 5 of the classic Babies cuts from the 70s. And the new album titled I'll Have Some of That. If you like old school Babies, you'll definitely love this album. So definitely pick it up and support this band. They're out on the road right now, I believe, doing select shows. So if they come into your town, definitely want to catch them live. You know, it's funny, when I was just listening back to the Frank Domino interview, so many similarities with the Babies and Angel. They both came to LA in 1975. Of course, the Babies coming over from England, and of course, Angel coming over from the East Coast. But many consider them LA bands because, of course, they were here since their debut record. So they're a big part of the LA scene, going to the Starwood and the Whiskey, and during that whole time in the 70s. And of course, we talk about that in the Inside Metal documentaries. Always got to give that a plug there. But really, really fascinating guy and a legendary guitarist, to say the least. Let's get right to it. Here is Wally Stocker from the Babies. Now, were you and Tony in previous bands before the Babies?
Tony was in a band called Strider, and they had toured with Rod Stewart, and that's how that sort of connection came about later.
Sure.
Later through the years with Tony and Rod, and I had been in, you know, a few bands playing around London, but nothing too spectacular, you know, just playing pubs and clubs, and so really, you know, for me, the Babies were, you know, the sort of turning point for me.
If I'm not mistaken, I remember when you signed with Chrysalis, wasn't it one of the biggest deals at the time? It was almost kind of taunted like you were like a super group of a band.
Yeah, it was a big deal. We actually got a record contract. We actually had 3 major companies fighting over us, and what we had done was we'd gone in the studio and we'd cut like 3 audio demos. You know, at that point it was like doing the rounds as far as record companies and playing them the demos, and but they'd always want to come and see you play, and we didn't really have any gigs lined up. So what we had done was we kind of poured the last of our money together and went in and shot a video to these three audio tracks that we had. And so that gave us a videotape that our manager could take around to, record companies that were interested and, sure. Just pop it in the player and go, here's the band. You can see them playing, you can hear the songs, and kind of like an audition tape, I mean, this was long before MTV, and we were really one of the first bands that got a record deal with a video demo.
Oh, as I say, when did you sign? Was it in 76?
Yeah, it may have been 75. Okay. We signed with Chrysalis in London, the UK division. It was a big deal back then. We signed a five album deal. So they immediately sent us up to Canada, actually, up in Toronto to cut that first record with Bob Ezrin producing. Yeah. And then they sent us over to America, and not really to tour, just to do like a promotional tour in major cities.
Right.
And some TV shows. American Bandstand was the first American show that we did with Dick Clark. And,
wow.
Promoting that first single, If You Got the Time. And major radio stations in major markets, Chicago, New York. And so we weren't really playing any gigs. It was more of a promotional tour. And at that point, Chrysalis in California, that Terry Ellis was running, right. He was like the major force at Chrysalis. He didn't want us going backwards and forwards, from California back to the UK and then back again. So he, threw this idea out. I'd really like you to be sort of situated in California. And so at that point, we all, sold everything that we had and packed our suitcases, and the four of us all came over and found ourselves living in Los Angeles and basically starting a new life,
Wow.
So it was kind of an adventure, being that young. It was, a definite change of pace for us, but
Sure.
We've basically called California at home ever since,
Is that a video available? I'd love to check that out from the American Bandstand. I'll have to go on YouTube. I actually have video taped when you guys were on Don Kirshner's.
Yeah, we used to do all those shows. That was Don Kirshner's rock concert, and we did Midnight Special, and we even did some of those talk shows in the afternoon with Merv Griffin and Dinah Shore and Mike Douglas. We were on all those shows,
wow.
But that was great for us because that was a lot of exposure, and it did us a lot of good, being on those type of shows.
Sure. Now, talk about coming over to the States for the first time. I mean, obviously around 75, 76. I was probably just prior to the punk explosion in the UK, and you come over to to LA. Did you guys go out, go to the Starwood or any of the clubs out there, check out the local bands? Because obviously this is about the time when Van Halen were still, the hot local club band before a lot of these bands got signed. Were you checking out the scene, and what did you think of the Los Angeles rock scene at that time?
We were always at the Starwood. Actually, I didn't live too far from the Starwood, and we were kind of based around that area in West Hollywood. But yeah, the Starwood and, the Roxy and the Whiskey, Gazzara's. Actually, Van Halen were at Gazzara's.
Yeah, they were house band.
Playing there. Yeah, I think they were the house band.
Yeah.
I remember going past Gazzara's, on a regular basis because Chrysalis was just up the road from Gazzara's, and I used to see this name up, Van Halen, and I thought it was, at the time, just one guy, like Van Morrison, you know, and I would see this name, Van Halen, And so I thought, I've got to check it out, you know. Of course, when I go in there, it's actually the band Van Halen, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it was all happening on the Strip at that point. Of course, the Santa Monica Civic was just down the road there, which we played many times. So, yeah, it was all happening, you know, as far as the West Hollywood Sunset Strip type of rock scene, you know.
But by the time you came out to LA, though, you were already opening for major acts at the arenas, or did you actually play some of the clubs in LA?
Yeah, we did. You know, they were, like I say, the Santa Monica Civic. We played the Whiskey a number of times. We actually did a New Year's Eve concert there. We had a 3-night run there at one point, and as the Babies, we never played Guitarist. And
That's a good thing.
I don't think we ever played the Starwood either. But we were always there, you know, as paying guests, if you like.
Right.
So, yeah, we went out on, like, our own tour. I remember us playing in Detroit, our very first gig, and we had Piper opening up for us.
I remember them. Billy Squire's old band.
Billy Squire, yeah,
Right.
was the lead singer then. And I think that was just like a major market type of tour, you know, Detroit, St. Louis, but playing in theaters, you know, decent-sized theaters. After that, we started going out. I think it was REO Speedwagon. We went out and supported their tour. They had that big album out at the time, You Can't Tune a Piano, but You Can Tune a Fish.
Right.
I think it was called.
Right.
So they were on a roll at the time, and that was good for us because they were doing like arena dates, and we had, you know, the opportunity to open up for them, and so that was a good tour for us to be on, you know, a lot of exposure on that one too.
And then, of course, the Broken Heart record you did with Ron Nevison.
Yeah.
And that was that was when you really kind of exploded, at least in the States. I remember, obviously, Isn't It Time was a big hit. And Give Me Your love that tune. That was on the radio quite a bit, and that really kind of established the Babies here in the States, at least. Now,
Yeah,
is it true
no.
you guys never played in England?
We did maybe a handful of shows, just like little kind of warm-up shows. I don't think we were even billed as the Babies, you know, we were just like billed as the support act, you know.
Right.
And we were just, you know, trying out our chops and, you know, trying to get the band tight as far as a live situation, but nothing really major at all, you know. Like I say, once they wanted us to sort of move over to the USA, you know, there was sort of no going back at that point, and there was so much to do here, you know. That's when we started sort of going out to the Far East as well, you know, Japan and Hong Kong and
Wow.
the Philippines and, you know, China. And so we were always on the move, and never really, you know, we went back to Europe to do some TV shows, and we did Top of the Pops in the UK with Isn't It Time. But it was, you know, like I say, it was just mainly sort of TV shows, no real festivals or touring or gigs of any kind.
Now, the first two albums were, you know, I wouldn't say heavy, but you guys really had some hard-hitting songs, you know, Looking for Love and a lot of the tunes off the first one, and even the second record, but you had a very classy sound. You weren't pop, you weren't commercial like as commercial, say, a Foreigner or a Journey, but you weren't, you know, heavy like a Judas Priest. You had that, you know, a band that always comes to mind, which is kind of ironic because they were on the same record label, same producer, Ron Nevison, is UFO. You weren't quite as heavy, but it seemed you were like right in that same ballpark. You used a lot of strings on certain songs, a Piece of Your Action, and you know, of course, Isn't It Time, and it just had that real classy appeal. Were they kind of an influence on you, or what was the main influence of the Babies?
Well, I think, you know, we always enjoyed experimenting with, you know, different sounds on records and on songs, and we were never afraid to, we kind of had this attitude, if it fits the track, let's keep it in there, and we started to branch out a little more with Broken Heart, and but we've always really been a rock band, there is a harder side to the Babies, and at first maybe, people hearing songs like Isn't It Time and Every Time I Think of You, maybe, they were under the impression that all of our material was like that. They'd come to the concerts and then realize that, there's another side to the Babies, and that's, has this much sort of tougher rock edge to it,
And how was the transition? Now, when Michael Corby left the band, was that in the middle of the Head First recording, or did you already have that? Because I know he's credited on the album, but he didn't tour with you, correct?
Yeah. Michael departed during the recording sessions for Head First. We'd probably cut, maybe 2/3 of it, and then that situation arose, and we had to deal with that. So John Waite, myself, and Tony Brock, we ended up finishing the album as a 3-piece, basically. We'd bring in some session guys if need be, but we tried to plow through it, just the three of us, and get it finished, because we'd already spent a lot of time on that. Christmas were getting a little anxious, and like I say, we finished it off without Michael, and of course then it was time to go out and promote that album, and that's when we decided to find a replacement for Michael. We held auditions for keyboard players that could play guitar, because Michael's role involved guitar playing and keyboards.
Sure.
And so while we were auditioning keyboard players, John Waite announced that he'd really like to put the bass down, because he was playing bass and singing, and just concentrate on the vocals. And he said, if we're auditioning keyboard players, why don't we look for a bass player as well? So that was it. We had open auditions for keyboard players and bass players, and that's how Ricky Phillips and Jonathan Cain became involved with the band.
Now, notice on the album, the following album, particularly Union Jacks, the band got a little poppier. Was that something that you think they might have attributed to Ricky and Jonathan, or was it the label maybe putting a little bit of pressure on you to write, more radio-friendly songs, or was it more of a band decision?
I don't think the label were, putting any pressure on us. I just think with the addition of Jonathan and Ricky, because they're songwriters too. That was one of the reasons we chose them, amongst other things. But so they were bringing in their influences as well, and so plus we had changed producers at that point. We were going with Keith Olsen. So it was a whole different situation. We'd gone from this Ron Neverson produced, big drums, big guitars, to Keith Olsen, who had his own way of, recording, and, plus we had 2 new members to the band, and with everybody writing, I think we sort of consolidated all the ideas, and, eventually that's how Union Jacks, sounded in the end. I mean, it wasn't a preconceived sort of notion that, that was what we should aim for. It was just, it's just the way it really came out,
Sure. Well, let's talk occurrence, Wally. I actually saw the band when you did, and I'm thinking this had to be like at least a couple years ago, when you first came back for a reunion. You played a small club in Burbank and did a little CD release party. You did like 5 songs, and dude, I gotta tell you, I mean, that was the only time I was able to see the new lineup of the Babies, and you absolutely blew my mind. I mean, for one, you and Tony just brought it on. I mean, yeah, Tony's drumming sounded so great, and your guitar playing, and the addition of John Bisaha on vocals. I mean, it sounded so close to the John Waite material. And then I heard the album. I'll have some of that, and you've kept that same kind of Babies formula that from the 70s. It was just kind of like this was the follow-up to, say, Union Jacks or something. I mean, you guys didn't miss a step. It was pretty astonishing.
Yeah, well, that was the plan right from the beginning. When Tony and I discussed reforming the band and looking for new members, that was our main priority, was to not lose the sound that we had. And when we cut the new album, I'll have some of that. Joey Sykes and John Bisaha, they were fans of the Babies long before we ever knew them, and so they kind of had the Babies in their blood from the beginning, and they both knew that that was what Tony and I were looking for, and it's kind of easy for them to just fall into that, that sort of pattern as far as us keeping the sound that we had those years ago. And, we didn't want to lose that, and we wanted to, move it forward with a new album. We didn't want to come back with a totally new sound and a whole new approach to our music, because of the great catalog that we had built up through the years. We wanted to certainly maintain that sound, and that approach to our music.
Now, when the band first broke up in the early 80s, obviously, as you had said, you and Tony did some work with Rod Stewart, and I believe you did some stuff with Elton John, right, and Humble Pie, and you guys were quite busy, and of course, everyone knows John Waite had a very successful solo career, and he did the Bad English Project. Why did it take so long for? I mean, obviously, you guys were busy doing a lot of stuff. Was there talk during the 90s and even the early 2000s of the Babies getting back together and possibly getting John and maybe even Michael Corby back involved? Was that like on anyone's list, or was it just done and over until just this recent reunion?
No, through the years, I mean, like you say, Tony and I were with Rod. I was only with Rod for about maybe 3.5 years, but Tony stayed with him for like 12 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then he was busy producing and touring with Australian singer Jimmy Barnes.
Oh, of course.
And Tony was producing him and playing in his band down in Australia. I joined Air Supply. I was with them for about 4 years.
That's right. Yeah.
And it was Tony that worked with Elton, and I worked with Humble Pie after Air Supply.
I gotcha.
And so before you knew it, all those years were like flying by. And I moved away from California. I went down to Florida, and but Tony and I would keep in touch, and we would always bounce this idea around of maybe reforming it, and we would contact John Waite, seeing if he was sort of interested in giving it another shot, and he was happy with his solo career, and of course he had Missing You out there, and
sure.
So he was happy with doing what he was doing, and didn't really want to get involved in the sort of band situation again. And so a few months would go by, and we'd hit him up again, and he would always decline. And Tony and I just sort of continued on with what we were doing. And then I think in 2012 he called me up. Tony called me up and said, how would you feel if, obviously John Waite doesn't want to do this, and, Michael's kind of out of the picture now, and Jonathan's not going to leave Journey to come back with us, and neither is Ricky. He's not going to leave Styx. Yeah. But, how do you feel about if we can find the right singer? Would you be interested? And, he said, I'm not going to do it without you. If you're not interested, I'll just continue on with what I'm doing, and we'll just call it a day. And I said, no, if we can find the right singer, I'm in. I'm 100% in. As long as we can find the right guy. So he started to hold auditions for singers at his studio, Silver Dream Studio there. He had singers lining up around the block. And then he called me one day and said, I think we may have found the guy we're looking for. Told me all about John Bazaha, and he sent me down, the video and the audio tracks. And I called him up and said, I think we're onto a winner here. And he said, well, I'm going to bring him back a few more times and really make sure. And so we were really, really happy with John. And, he passed the audition, and we were underway. We had found really, that sort of cornerstone of what we were looking for. Otherwise, we would just never have, bothered with it. And so that was kind of inspiring and exciting, to think that, we had actually found who we were looking for, and now we could just forge ahead.
The band sounds, as I said, the band sounds fantastic, and John just does such an excellent job, and of course Joey Sykes on guitars. And one thing I loved about seeing the band, and from what I understand, currently you bring out the whole band with the Babettes, which is cool. It's not like you're having backing tracks, and even the strings and everything. You have the keyboardist. It's really a full band without the backing tracks. It's got to be quite expensive though to bring a 6 or 7 piece band out on the road, huh?
Yeah,
these days.
It is, but we didn't want to cut corners. We wanted to present the music, the way it was originally recorded and played, and we wanted all those elements back in it. We could have gone out as a 4-piece with tapes, like you say, backing tracks, but we wanted to present the band, just that full sound, especially with having Joey on guitar as well now. Back in the earlier days, whether we had Michael or Jonathan, I was like the only guitar in the band, unless Jonathan or Michael would come out and play guitar. But most of the time they were back there behind the keyboards. So, but now we have, Joey on sort of second guitar, plus we have keyboards, plus we have the lovely ladies, the Babettes, Holly and Elisa. So it's, the sound is so rich and so full, and, that's the way we wanted to present, our music, and not cut corners, just, sort of not really worried about the expense,
right?
Because, we just wanted to present the band the way that we felt, the fans deserve it,
Absolutely, and I agree 100%. And it's got to be tough for John, obviously, to fill the shoes of John Waite, who really made a name for himself after the Babies. So everyone's gonna, use John Waite, but it's really no different than Journey with Steve Perry, and when they got Arnell in, and when Foreigner got Kelly Hansen in. Both those singers did such an incredible job of replacing Steve Perry or Lou Gramm, and I think John does the absolute same with replacing John Waite. And I think it's obviously you're going to go through that hurdle of people saying, "Oh well, if it's not John Waite, I'm not going. It's not the true Babies." But is it getting to the point where people are coming to and saying, "Oh shit, this is the real deal"? How has the reaction been?
No, it has been that way. We obviously knew that, right from the very beginning that, our John Bazaha and John Waite, people were going to compare the two. And, we've heard that along the way, no John Waite, no Babies, until they come and see us, and then it's a whole different story. And they realize that, we mean business, and we're not looking back to those days. And like I say, as far as John Waite, we've offered him many times, and he's declined. So we decided to move on, and with those bands in mind that you mentioned, like Journey and Foreigner, who have had singers come in and replace original singers, and they're still out there working, and so that was our attitude too. It was like, we really don't care about the comments, until you see us, you really don't know. And, and those that have seen us now, we've changed their mind,
Right.
And so that was the whole goal, John Bazaar, I knew it was going to be tough, but, he has a strong personality, and but he was up for the challenge, and that was one of his many talents.
Yeah.
And
He's got great stage presence as well.
yes, yeah, and he plays bass, so we don't have to find a bass player.
There you go.
And I think everybody's attitude was, don't let the comments, interfere with what it is we're trying to do. Let's just forge ahead and, just show them that they're wrong,
Sure. Well, it seems like it's the perfect timing for the Babies to come out with this reunion. I mean, as you know, and as we just discussed, so many of the I guess you'd call them classic rock bands of the '70s, from Styx and Foreigner and Journey to REO, and even Steve Miller Band, Doobie Brothers. All these bands are out on the road and doing very well. And I notice a lot of these bands. We'll even combine some of the '80s bands like Def Leppard and do package tours. Journey, Def Leppard, and and with that they're able to play arenas. Is that something that the Babies are trying to work on, kind of a package tour? Because you would fit in so well with some of these bands, or even a UFO, who are back out touring.
Well, we are. I mean, those kind of tours, would be ideal for us right now. When we first reformed this, Tony and I were looking at that kind of situation, like a 3-band bill, let's say that the Babies and Styx and Journey, or the Babies, Styx and Cheap Trick, because they're all old friends of ours. We've done shows with all of them, and to get on a package tour like that right now for the Babies would be, really, really good for us. Of course, we have contacts in these bands like Styx and Journey, but
of course,
they kind of say, well, I can talk to management and see what I can do, but I can't promise anything. And so but we'll just persevere, but going out with bands like that,
absolutely,
that we've gone out with before, would be really terrific.
And I think now is the time for the Babies to finally conquer Europe and England, because I know you've got a huge following all over there, and with so many festivals and some of the lineups being so diverse, and the metal festivals like the Sweden Rock Fest and Wacken in Germany, and of course you got Download and all these others in England, and several other festivals. I mean, tons of festivals throughout France and Germany and Italy and whatnot. I think. This would be the right time to hit Europe for the summer tours next year, huh?
Yeah, that would be wonderful. It would be great to go back over there, especially really not really playing over there, and the TV shows that we did were so long ago now, but so many different avenues we could take right now. It's just a question of making the right contacts and getting on those kind of shows, I mean, it's certainly something we'd love to do. Let's hope the new year, brings some of that around for us.
Absolutely, and I cannot stress enough how fantastic the new record is. I'll have some of that you released independently on your own. And what is so cool is, as I mentioned, you kind of go back to that classic old Baby sound. But, so many bands these days, with obviously CDs not selling the way they are, and particularly a lot of these bands that come in and do a reunion, with a couple original members or whatever, they just kind of throw an album together, and it's maybe one or two good songs. But this is a full album, fantastic production, very well written songs. It was something that you obviously took serious. It wasn't just a money grab. It was something that you really, at least it sounds to me, something that you worked quite extensively on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that was the point. We wanted to come back not only with the new lineup, but with, a new album, just so that we could show that, we were back. It's interesting because that album, we had a 2-month window to get that album out, and if we didn't reach if we weren't done by a deadline, we wouldn't have been able to release it that early in the year. We would have had to wait till later in the year. So it was a full-on project. I mean, we were spending anywhere from 12 to 16 hours a day in the studio just to get it done. We originally started probably with about 40 songs because, everybody came in with material, and so we had to boil that down to maybe 20, and then finally the songs that actually went on the album. Plus, we moved in a analog board, an old Soundcraft 24-track analog board, so we could get that warmth of analog recording as opposed to digital. So that's where we kind of recaptured the sound a little bit as well, with that analog sound. And Tony did a great job producing it and engineering it, and we were all very happy with it. Like you say, we did maintain that sound from the earlier days, and that was the goal to begin with. But we just wanted to come back with a new product as well to promote, and as opposed to some bands that are just out there doing the circuit. I've spoken to some of my friends in those bands, and they've said, well, we don't even bother making records anymore. We're just too busy, touring, and which is nice, of course. But for a musician, it's nice to have something new out there to promote, and sort of be creative and write new songs and get them out there and just. I know if I was just touring continuously and had no new product out there to promote, I'd feel, I would feel like I've sort of underachieved in a way, because every musician likes to write new material and hopefully get to play it.
Sure.
And, you know what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely have to have a passion for it these days, especially to do it right with a record, because obviously touring is where the money is. People aren't going to make money off CDs. So, to go in and to put a CD of this quality together and spend this amount of time and on the production and the songwriting, it's all about the integrity and passion, because you don't know how well it's going to, I mean, with today's business model, it's very, very difficult to make money, as you know, off of CDs.
Yeah. But it's, as a musician, it's just in your blood to be creative all the time. And, if you cut off that flow and that creative side of being a musician, you just feel like there's a part of what you're doing missing, I just feel that's part of being, an artist.
Absolutely. Well, again, the Babies, they're brand new album. I'll have some of that. I guess it's not brand new. It's about a year old now, I would say. But it is available on Amazon. I know you got on iTunes, and you've got a great website out there. And you just put out the single, I See You There. It's a single and video, correct?
Yes. I See You There is the single from the album, and a song written by Joey Sykes. Wow. Wonderful song, actually. Yeah. And we're currently working on a new video for a new single. It's actually a single that we're going to re-release. It was the first single we released when we first came back. It's a song called Not Ready to Say Goodbye, and we're going to re-release that along with the video. But right now, Not Ready isn't on the new album. Like I say, we released that as a single, our first single back as the New Babies. Right. Then we just put out a new website, which the help of Jenn Mitchell, sure. And she's really helped us a lot.
All right. Why don't you give out the site address and any Facebook or any other social media pages that you have out there?
Well, it's thebabiesofficial.com. That's our website. And we're also on Facebook, The Babies Official. We're on Twitter, right on. Tweet the Babies. And let's see, we're on LinkedIn. And we're on,
well, there you go.
What am I forgetting?
Instagram? I don't know.
Yes, Instagram, yeah.
And just so people know, I guess we should let people that aren't familiar with the Babies know the spelling is Baby's, not IES. That's a whole different Babies.
Yep, that's correct. No plural and no apostrophe. Thebabiesofficial.com.
There you go. All right. Well, really appreciate it, Wally. And you got shows coming up that you want to promote? I know you got a show down in Orange County, down in Huntington Beach, coming up on the 29th. Right?
Yeah, that's correct. Huntington Beach, the 29th, we're playing down. It's like a blues festival. I believe it's also a charity event, too, for autism. So, we feel very proud to be part of that. And so that's coming up the end of this month, October 29th in Huntington Beach.
All right. Well, thank you again, Wally. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Well, there you have it, man. The legendary Wally Stocker from the Babies. That will conclude this episode, our 10th anniversary special. Can't believe it's been 10 years, man. 10 years of the Shockwaves Hard Radio podcast. Thanks for all your support over the past decade. Really appreciate it. And we are going to try to get these future podcasts going in a timely manner, hopefully. So once again, thanks for all your support over the past 10 years. You can always check us out at hardradio.com, the Shockwaves Hard Radio podcast, also on iTunes. You can check out the Inside Metal documentary movies. Of course, the movie's available on DVD and digital downloads. And for more information, just go to metalrockfilms.com. You could order the DVDs there. Thanks again for all your support. We will be back very soon.
Thanks for checking out the Shockwaves/Hard Radio podcast. You can check out and download all the episodes of the Shockwaves/Hard Radio podcast free of charge. Go to our homepage at hardradio.com and click on the Shockwaves button. You can email Bob Nalbandian at shockwaves@hardradio.com with any comments, suggestions, or gripes.